Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Cheng, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform. And I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. We're so excited to have Talia Berman with us today, who has had a very decorated career across many different positions within hospitality, and is currently a partner at Friend of Chef, which is one of those, like, if you know type of firms. But I don't know if that was done on purpose, but it's definitely a group of folks who I highly respect, and I think has probably touched many guests and hospitality folks without them even knowing it. So I will kind of leave it at there and keep that little air of mystery up there. But we're here to really focus on Talia and her career path and how she got to where she is and some advice that she learned along the way. So Talia, take me back to how you got started in this industry.
Oh God. Hi, Alice. It's lovely to see
Yes,
you
welcome.
and be here. Thank you. Um, you know, this is a hard question because in many ways it feels like I've always been wanting to. Like I was 5 years old, like putting cleaning supplies on top of a plate and pretending it was my tray and playing waitress. I've always loved restaurants and hospitality and being in the mix, the action. I think, like many people, I was waitressing during grad school and much more interested in the waitressing than in the grad school, and couldn't quite figure out how to marry the two. But I think that I had a moment, I was working at Michael Jordan's Steakhouse in Grand Central Terminal. It was my first job as a manager. And job was really hard.
I was going to say, I remember.
It's insane.
That space is like, anyway, I'm sure you have many stories, but that's for a different show. But
it was a whole nother thing. Yeah. And it was nothing like I expected or anything like that. And it was also like, the challenges, I now realize how crazy it was. I didn't know then. But I still loved it. And I think that was I was so happy being in the magic and the mix. It's such a diversity of talent and group of people that you get to see every day. And I think the unlikely stories are what drew me in from the jump. People who don't deserve or weren't born or, get access to success and fame and glory and all that goes with the successes of a restaurant. So I just loved it. I just wanted to watch it, frankly. And originally that is what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to write about it, but it turns out I wanted to be in it.
Yeah. And when was that working there, was that really when you were like, I could see myself in this, or were you still just enjoying the vibe, the energy, and saying like, this is a great thing you've got going on?
I think the turning point for me, and I know it's a little cheesy, but it's just so true. So I waitressed during grad school. I was working at Michael Jordan's, and one of the other managers gave me a copy of Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. He's like, you seem to care about this more than the rest of us. He's like, you're asking a bunch of questions. You seem more invested. Like, you should read this book. And for me, reading Setting the Table was like the academicization of the industry, right? Before I was just like, oh, we're all a bunch of pirates and, oh, it just worked out. Oh, that's fun. Or New Year's Eve and Thanksgiving, just the magic of it, the romance of it was all very appealing. But it wasn't until I read Setting the Table that I was like, there's a higher pursuit. There's a real reason about what we do. There's real gratification that doesn't just end at the end of the shift, because that's a type of gratification that's amazing. You'll never feel more tired or more fulfilled than a 10-hour dinner service. But reading that book grounded me and really kind of solidified and articulated for me a lot of the things that I'd been thinking about. So I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is going to be real. Let's do this properly.
Nice. So where did you go from there?
Union Square Cafe.
As you do, right? That's just a logical step.
Listen, I will always pick up the phone. I will always walk out in front of traffic. And I wrote an email to Danny. I guessed his email address. I wrote him an email. I was a manager at Michael Jordan's. I made sure to quote the book a ton because I didn't even have to. I was like obsessed with it. And he wrote me back and he said, we need a manager at Union Square Cafe. Fast forward and there I was. And that was my real, indoctrination and learning. That was when the education, I think, really began. The love was already there. And then the learning sort of catapulted from at Union Square Cafe as a dining room manager. And the old one, by the way.
Yes. I was, I was just chatting with Dan and he was saying how he was there as well. And I was like, yeah, that kitchen, those stairs, I'm never going to forget those stairs.
No, that wine room. Oh my gosh, the wine rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know any better. See, this is the thing. It wasn't until I started consulting. That was what it was to me. I grew up in New York City restaurants. So that's just, to me, there's so much magic and glory and like real value in making it work and within all kinds of different spaces. And like, that's like the whole bit, that's where the magic happens, right? Like if you have to work for it a little bit and, working when I started consulting first and working on all these projects in the Midwest and places where square footage is, at a different premium, I was like, well, why is the office so nice? People are going to just be in it if the office is this nice. I was like, this doesn't work for me. Like, I think the office is in a basement with no windows where six people share the same computer. That's how the restaurant works. And I stand by that to this day.
Yeah. And I don't want to skip over this because I'm going to rewind a little bit here. You started your career as a personal assistant to Gail Green. You can't just skip over that.
Well, I certainly think and feel about her every single day. So yes, I did. She was a hoot. She was, I think in her like mid 70s, late 70s when I was working for her. I started her Twitter account for her. I convinced her to do it, which she had over 100,000 followers within a few months, but she was born for Twitter. 45 in the early days, remember, some people just got it and knew what to do right away. She was like, it was too nuts. And I learned a ton. She let me dine with her. She had some very intense idiosyncrasies that didn't bother me. I'm very practical. And I worked for her for 2 years. It was great. She's
nice. I just needed to give that its proper, airtime.
Yeah. So I appreciate that.
so you're managing at Union Square Cafe.
Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have a couple spin-off episodes off of this. And you're at Union Square Cafe and you're crushing it. And now you're thinking about what's next.
Sure. It was from Union Square Cafe, I wanted to grow. I've always been I'm very ambitious, and anyone who, ever since I was 5 and my parents, my friends' parents called my parents to say that I was being bossy. Like, I just like to do everything. I want to be the big boss. I don't want to listen. And so I wanted to grow. And so I took a job. A mentor of mine said, pick a lane. Like if you're a dining room manager, choose beverage or choose the door or choose private dining. So I took a role at Patina Restaurant Group at Lincoln Ristorante, working for Jonathan Beno and Paolo Novello at Lincoln. And I did private dining there, which was amazing. I mean, it was, I planned Lori Tish's daughter's wedding rehearsal dinner, right? Like it was like crazy big Lincoln Center events, and Lincoln had just opened and they had just gotten 1 star or 2 stars. The famous pan for the $25 single scallop dish that no one will ever forget. And it was a really special restaurant. I learned a lot about work ethic and commitment and everyone working toward the same goal. And I also learned how to do private dining, which came in handy and continues to come in handy. I always say the pick a lane advice is great when someone needs to be oriented. But I think it also you just need something to talk about in the early days. You just need to be like, if you come in for an interview and you've been a dining room manager and you can do everything, you won't interview as well as if you're able to like really get passionate about running the door, right? Or managing a reservations book or a tech stack or kitchen relations or any of the kind of different areas that there are. Getting really good at something is really, really helpful. I find even you can switch back later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great piece of advice because I feel like oftentimes, people can get stuck with like, well, I know how to do everything, but now it's next level is like find the area that you want to go deeper in
Yeah.
and build, a stronger set of skills in, because that's really going to differentiate you from,
Yeah.
where you want to go in the future. So you had some I would say picking lane, career defining experience and skill building, and then you decided what's next.
Yep. And I took the job as a private dining manager. It was the private dining director at Lincoln, and that was amazing. And then the whole, I wanted more, and I was ambitious. I wanted to run the whole show, not just the private dining show. But I was like, I don't know, 20 something. So what was available to me was a smaller stage. And so I moved over to Teapol. Teapol's still open. Just had their 20th anniversary. It's an
Wow.
amazing restaurant, on 10th and 22nd. I took a role as a GM, and it was all mine. And like, boy, did I love that. It was great. I mean, to be able to, you know, there's so much that's unpredictable about our business. And, when you think about whether you should be in it, right? Like when you think about, is this really for me? I often do that stress test. Like, how well do you bear unpredictability? In fact, how well do you crave it? And coming into a role like Teapol, where I had control over everything that you could control, then I could just leave the unpredictability to the unpredictability and almost revel in it. And it was one of the real turning points for me where I was like, okay, I'm always going to be in this business. There's nowhere else I'll go, was during Hurricane Sandy at Teapol. So Teapol's on 10th Avenue. It's past the flood lines. Like, we flooded plus the kitchen is in the basement. So there was a serious, it was a complete disaster. We were closed for a long time, but 4 or 5 days after Hurricane Sandy, the beverage manager, myself, went over to the space, and we're in the basement. Like, we opened up this refrigerator door, and there was octopus inside that had been unrefrigerated for like 5 days. And believe me, like, you truly never smelt anything worse. And also, by the way, I'm still up to my knees in water with God knows what inside of it. And I kind of thought I was going to pass out, but my first thought was, okay, so it's just olives and almonds and candles and wine for when we reopen. Like, that was my thought. And I was like, who are you? Like, why? Like, go throw up like a normal person and then quit and go home. And I think the fact that I just wanted to get open. Like, I just was like, the city was I'm sure you remember, like, it was a terrible time. And
Yeah.
all I wanted was to create these like warm spaces for people to gather and drink together and, mourn and celebrate and just be together. And I know that nobody does that better than restaurants. So I was so anxious, and I was like, this is my moment. And I can tell you, some of the people around me were like, can I just go upstate and forget this ever happened and come back when it's fixed? And given that wasn't my response, you really got to listen to yourself. Right. And I was like, this is like, I'm meant to do this forever.
Yeah. So when did you start, you're running the show there. Clearly you enjoy to be in control. One of the wonderful things that I love about you.
Unembarrassed.
Know
thyself.
Exactly. And when did you know that you were ready for the next challenge?
After Teapol. Um, I think a lot of times in this business, and I'm told everywhere, you have to take advantage of every opportunity. And I really loved the people and the restaurant. I still do. You can hear it in my voice. Um, so I decided, but it was small, right? It's a 40-seat restaurant, and I wanted a bigger stage. And the other restaurant in the company was, the GM role was coming up. So I thought it was really soon. I hadn't been at a table for very long, but I put myself up for it. And I remember the owner saying, I knew you were going to ask for this. I knew you were going to go. Because she's like, you've been here for 5 minutes. Like, you're already asking to. And the restaurant that that I'm talking about was Maysville. It was on 26th Street, an amazing restaurant.
Oh,
It's
I
open
loved
for a
that
long
restaurant.
time.
I had a beautiful bar that, was
Yep.
great happy hour spot.
Yeah. A beautiful P&L too. I can tell you
Yeah.
that much. It was such a great place to work. And it was early for me. That was a big step up. It's a 125-seat restaurant. A named chef, Kyle Nall. So it was very different than a beloved neighborhood tapas bar that was open for dinner and brunch. But I wanted the opportunity, so I asked for it, and then I didn't really take no for an answer. We came out with a deal where we had an interim situation where I would spend 6 more months at Teapol. And I've done that a lot in my career, where I've asked for something before my partners think I'm ready. So then we kind of strike a bridge. Okay, fine, I'll stay here a little bit longer. And then I'll come over to you, or I'll come over to the bigger job when, somewhere in between when you think I'm ready and when I think I'm ready. And I think for me, one of the lessons learned there was that don't be afraid to manage up. Don't be afraid to, don't come to someone with a question, come to someone with the solution that you want. And then the two of you together can surface the question. I find that the person who wants the job the most is the one that gets it so often. Qualifications be damned, passion, drive, commitment, and like asking for what you want will win. At least that's how it's worked out for me.
Yeah, no, that's great sound advice. And obviously, having the, track record to back up your ask, and only you will know when the timing is right. And there's an art to the approach, I think, there.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's really important for people. I think, too often, people get into their rhythm, which is great. And if your goal is to stay in that rhythm and have, continuity and consistency, great. But if and when you get that additional bug to move forward, I think there is an art to getting the right support from the people who have supported you. And then also making sure that you've consistently shown up for those people or that job, et cetera. It's a huge but very small industry. And I don't think that has ever changed, year over year. So
very true.
So after this, right, I see, and I'm cheating a little bit because I'm looking at your hospitality career path. After this, I see this string of academia.
Right. Yes, that was kind of all throughout. I mean, Will Guidera introduced me to the dean of ICE when I was at Union Square Cafe. He's like, you seem to enjoy teaching and training and talking and
bossing
and bossing. I mean, he was a great friend of mine back then as well, and that was we learn from high performers. It's like there's an osmotic effect, honestly, and so I started guest lecturing at ICE all the way back then. I'd been a manager for 5 minutes, but it was amazing because the students, I wasn't that much older than the students. So they loved to hear someone like, oh, I could be doing this in a few years. And then I got older. They stayed the same age. And they sort of followed me. I've had classes. I had a class, they used to come visit me at Lincoln, at Teopole, Maysville. I would do virtual classes in the pandemic. And actually before the pandemic, when I moved over to consulting a little bit more, they asked me to start teaching full time at ICE, which I did. I was dealing with personal, having babies, getting married, not always conducive to, exactly. Opening bottles of wine at 2 a.m, not exactly the same skill set. Anyway, so I thought I'm going to lean into the teaching because there's so much about managing restaurants that it overlaps in terms of what I enjoy, growing people and seeing them exercise their passions, shape their futures, take control of their own destinies and things like that you see in restaurants all the time. And the same goes for ICE. And from ICE, I went over to NYU. I don't teach at ICE anymore. I teach a class called Food Entrepreneurship, which is so fun. It covers everything. It's like a primer on the restaurant industry, but it also covers food, retail, and CPG. And as much as I can, I include guest speakers because we have such a great network here at FOC. And through all of my years working in restaurants, I can call almost anybody. So we get great speakers and best of the industry, and it's really fun. It's a good entry point, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And it also shows folks, not just young folks, because I think, anyone who can enroll in this class, that there are different ways and different directions that somebody can take, these skills, this passion. And that's really important. And, I feel like, and I don't just feel like the data supports it, that this industry is like the biggest feeder into the working population in America. And, I always love it when you're listening to an interview or you see somebody that's, you wouldn't think or know, but they're like, oh yeah. And I started out, as a busser or a dishwasher or waiting tables here and there. And, it's really important to kind of look back and look forward and say like, you can figure it out. It's not going to be easy, but if you surround yourself and you really put your time and effort and show up, that things will kind of not fall in place. You have to make things happen, but there are opportunities. So I love that. And you're still doing that now, right? You're still,
I am. Yes, I am
because you don't
teaching
have
small.
enough going on. So let's just keep piling on more things, right? I love
It
it.
feeds different parts of my soul. I don't get to, I'm not, I don't have a, I don't have a couple hundred people reporting to me anymore that I can grow from cashier to head baker or bartender to events manager. That's not my life anymore. And I need to scratch that itch. So
I love
it's
it.
my students feed me, and I won't give it up, even though, yes, pain, I can't, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We'll complain about that. That's a different
Yeah,
podcast too.
right.
But
I love it. I mean, that's like, I think that's drinks, not podcast, but
better.
um, so, okay. So tell me about Levain, because I love the cookies. And they
Sure.
have actually, they've gone through some incredible growth, which without a doubt, had to also do with like a great foundation that it was put in place from operations, et cetera, while you were there. So tell me a little bit about your time there. And did you have like unlimited supply of cookies? Because that's really all I really care about.
I did have an unlimited supply of cookies, and it was amazing, and they did not get any worse. In fact, they got better, and it was a problem. But what I figured out was that if you eat one entire cookie but like nothing else, it's kind of okay. So I
Oh,
was on that diet for a little while.
I'm going to adopt that. I'm going to adopt that.
Eat it at like 4 o'clock when you're like dying of hunger.
Oh, not at 11:30 at night when I'm like doing my second shift. Okay, got it.
Maybe a little bit of both. Listen, Levain is an unbelievable company. I can't say enough. Um, I'd never worked in a bakery before, much less a wildly successful bakery like Levain. So I'd only ever worked in restaurants. I'm accustomed to restaurant economics. So imagine my eyes after having worked there for 2 months, and I get a sense of what their business looks like, what their P&Ls look like. And I was like, I'm never working in a restaurant again. You people are crazy. Like, this is amazing. We should all be selling cookies. And, the thing that I love about the company, and I'll tell you about my experience specifically, is the way that, a lot of the groups I've worked, I realize one of the patterns is that we have, in Pam and Connie, the founders, they didn't have a business plan and a go-to-market strategy and an expansion strategy and a pricing escalation plan or anything. They just were them, and they really paid attention to their customers. And we say the customer makes the menu. We say you've got to win the neighborhood. We have all these expressions that are all so true, but seeing them like in real life come to fruition and the manifestation of all of that was so gratifying for me. I had never, the brand really stands up to itself as being kind of beloved within the neighborhoods that it operates in, beloved within the teams, the founders. There's so much there that is just so appreciated, and they're not overthinking it. Like, it's cookies, and they really don't try to make it more complicated than that. And I think that was what attracted me to it. I started working there in the heat of the pandemic. It was September of 2020, so was kind of just what I needed, right? Like I was like, oh wow, like these are, Levain is an essential business, right? Because it's a bakery, so it's open. But imagine the experience of trying to. And I was given the directive, like, keep the staff safe. I could have been given the directive, make as much money as you possibly can. And I'm not to say that I wasn't told to do that also, but the first thing that I was meant to do was abide by all the capacity guidelines and make sure everybody's comfortable and keep the doors open with safety as your first. And it was so refreshing, right? Like, and that's not a knock on previous places that I've worked, but when you have such a healthy business, the way that Levain is, when you have such a beautiful P&L, as I say, you can afford to do things like that. You really set yourself up. And I think that restaurants who are able to do that in business models that can provide the way that Levain did was just, I mean, there's really nothing better there. And it was a race. I opened 4 bakeries in 2 or 3 years, something like that. One of them was the reopening of 74th Street, which was an unbelievable experience. It was like coming home because people were waiting for the original. We had closed because it's 350 square feet. Like, how you cannot abide capacity and social distancing guidelines in a space that small. So being able to reopen was just a wonderful thing, and everyone was so happy. I think they're really headed for the stars if they're not already there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I, I've been eating the cookies for years and years. I was lucky enough to, they had me speak a come into the office and speak to the team not too long ago. So I got to meet them, and just hearing the story also of like they were friends that started out as like what triathletes or something, and they
Yep.
needed to like get the most calories and
Oh,
whatever,
it's
and
an
like
energy cookie, just so you know. Like, this is what I tell myself. I'm like, I'm not going to
good
have like
one.
a kind bar. I'm going to have like half of a Levain cookie because it's the same. It served them back then.
Yeah,
So, you can tell yourself whatever story you want,
I like it.
but
I
they're
like it.
amazing. And they're also still so they're so passionate, so involved. Like they're really, I was able, even though we had hundreds and hundreds of employees, I was able to develop a personal relationship with them, which I don't think is that common. So I'll always be grateful for that experience.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you for sharing. So now I have like additional things to add to the joy when I'm eating these cookies. Every time, and I promise we'll move on from these cookies, but every time I'm online, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to overbuy because I'm just going to eat them, or we're going to eat them. My husband and I, now my daughter also loves them. But then right when I get to ordering, I have to double up because I'm like, well,
Yeah, you do.
I'll put it in the
I know.
freezer, right? I'm
I
just gonna
know.
put it in the freezer. And I get
And they're
home.
so smart. They always offer like free shipping on like the bigger package. So it's like the same price to get the smaller. I'm like, guys, this is annoying now.
Yeah. Yes, they're awesome, and they
Yeah,
really reeled us in when they started giving my daughter the stickers, and now she wants the stickers. I mean, just like
the whole
like
thing.
genuine hospitality turned into brilliant sales tactics. Anyway,
Yep.
um,
Yeah, I totally.
so, let's get to what you're currently doing because it's
Sure.
so interesting. Well, I'll let you get into it. And we'd love to hear kind of the exciting things happening and where you focus and what's next.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, you gave us a little bit of mystery intro, so I'll try to get a little bit more deep in. Friend of Chef we've been around since 2009. Started off in the library at the Nomad was our office, and the work that we do is we are Friend of Chef. That is that nomer, that is true, right? Like we have 30 or 40 chefs that we do a lot of work with. We help them grow their businesses. We look at what deals are they're being offered, how they want to expand, how they want to fix their existing businesses. We really try to work with them. We're all former operators. We've all been in the business. We all have like kind of different skill sets, but coming together. And we also work with the landowners, right? Like we have relationships with the real estate developers and a lot of cultural institutions, hotels, municipalities, and we help them figure out how they want to feed their people. And that's the core of the business. So they come to us with a problem, or they come to us with what they think is their problem, which isn't always their problem, but we help them figure it out. And the reason this company is so perfect for me, and the reason that I think it's so important as far as the work that we're doing, is because I can't I can't think of a better way to change hearts and minds than through food, right? Like I don't know if you have a problem, like if you're a municipal, if you're a cultural institution and nobody's visiting your museum anymore because you've kind of aged out and the neighborhood's died, whatever it is, like how do you convince people to come back in? Is it by like a partnership with Nike? Like maybe might help, but like what about a restaurant? What about an active restaurant with a chef who can make people draw new attention and think differently about your building, about what you're trying to do inside of it? And time and again it's been proven. And there's easy examples that are super obvious, and then there's incredibly complex stories. Like we're working on the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We did Tatiana at Lincoln Center. We redid the restaurants at the Whitney Museum, the Brooklyn Museum, the Paris Art Museum in Miami, the Broad in Los
Rock
Angeles,
Center.
Rock Center. We have, I mean, Rock Center is a very interesting example, right? We have 14 restaurants that we did in Rock Center, and what was the problem there, right? Like why did we need to do those restaurants? What was wrong with Sea Grill or Rock Center Cafe or whatever else was there? Well, Rob Spire came to us and he said, no New Yorkers go to these restaurants. Like we're busy when the tree is lighting. We get tourists year round, but the people who work in the building, the 2 million square feet of office space that we have, they go downtown for dinner. And we don't want them to have to do that anymore. Like, what can we do? So we said, make restaurants of New York. Bring restaurateurs from around the city that are beloved, that are proven, that are small, and have them open restaurants here because that's where your constituents are going. That's where your office tenants are. And you can give them the gift of time. They don't have to travel 20 minutes on the subway and 20 minutes back to get back on the train. They can just go downstairs. And moreover, there's pride because they get to say, just come downstairs. I have a beautiful restaurant, Jupiter, right? Like the ladies from King. Josh Adbel and Annie Shee opened a pasta restaurant down on the concourse level at Rock Center. And you couldn't get that kind of food there before Jess moved and Annie moved in. So I think that's been incredibly successful. It's really helped. And by the way, changing hearts and minds, there's a financial value to that too, right? Like Rob was the Tishman's Fire was able to lease the 2 million square foot of office space in the pandemic, in large part due to the restaurants and also to the retail. They developed a similar strategy around retail as well. And Rock Center is completely transformed from what it was 10 years ago. And who would have thought that Greg Backstrom owns a bunch of awesome neighborhood restaurants in Brooklyn would want to be in Rock Center? Well, guess what? Like, with the right relationship and the right partners, knowing he's going to be next to Jupiter and Naro, which is owned by JP and LA Park, he's going to do it. And he did it. And it's really special.
Yeah, and I will attest to that because it's somewhat close to my neighborhood. So I constantly are strolling in the area, and it's a place that I recommend, restaurants. I mean, things have shifted when people are calling me and asking me to help them with reservations in Rock Center, right? That definitely didn't happen in the past.
Not a problem before. Not a problem before.
Yeah.
And it's a great stage. Think about it like, for my company too, it really has to go both ways. Like, yes, we are paid usually. Our relationship is with the real estate developer or the hotel, but we are friend of chef because it has to be good for if the guys from Frenchette, right, Lee and Riyadh, if they open Le Rock in Rock Center, and that's been such an incredible boon for them. They've had so much opportunity since then. It's such a hit. It's maybe the most beautiful or got to be one of the most important, best, most special restaurants in the city right now. They wouldn't have had that opportunity if Rock Center didn't present it to them. So they benefit greatly as well. And I think it has to work for everybody. There's an old Rich Melman saying that you can't do a good deal with bad people and you can't do a bad deal with good people. And I think that holds true. Like, nowhere is that more evident than in the Rock Center relationships.
Yeah. No, I love it. And, we're culinary agents, right? And originally when I came up with that name, even though we're all positions, front of house, back of house, et cetera, it was with the thinking of like, there needs to be like agents that are helping, the talent grow and navigate, right? Because it's hard. It's hard to, you can have a dream to start your own business and you can have, all the talent and skill, but if you don't find the right people, or if you don't understand and you don't know what you don't know, and you can't connect in to the right situation, it could make things a lot more difficult for you. And so to your point in your example of giving, talent an opportunity to grow their businesses beyond, where they're already currently successful, but in, dare I say, a less risky way. It's still risky, right? In general, I think starting businesses are always risky and there's a lot of unknowns, but it's different when it's done in a way where you trust the folks that are, putting together the deal, if you will, or just helping you navigate, and you truly know that they understand, and they want what's best for you as well. It's great. And I've known, one of your partners for many years, Keith. Everyone knows Keith. And so I feel
Keith really taught me that because I didn't know. So he, more than anything, has taught me how to listen to the chefs. And he hasn't even worked in restaurants nearly as long as I have. He's never worked. I mean, he's owned a bunch of restaurants. He's worked in a restaurant. He'll tell you he's worked in a restaurant one day in his life. And I've worked in a restaurant 100,000 days in my life. And yet he taught me how to listen to the chefs. And I say chefs, but I mean operators. And he taught me to have time for everybody and to help steer them and to not be afraid to tell them what's bad for them. And I always was. It's dealing with creatives, like the true masterminds behind some of these concepts and some of these runaway hits it's intimidating. And he really taught me that everybody needs their day, right? You have to understand what it is that they want. And when they tell you, you have to believe them. And then you have to wait for the opportunity. And I never really thought about it that way until I was like in meeting after meeting with, we spend half our day talking to people that we don't know who are chefs and operators or want to be chefs and operators, and just learning, just listening and learning. It's a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, Keith has many superpowers, and one of them is definitely people, and like quietly, creatively connecting people that he just knows will connect, like you and I. And ever since I
Yeah,
met you, I
sure.
haven't spoken to him in a while. Tell him I said hi, by the way. And I miss him dearly, but
We'll
but
invite him to drink, maybe. We'll see.
maybe. But that's great. And that, that goes back to the whole, you meet the people and you connect and you hold on to the relationships and throughout this journey and this career and this walk of life, if you will, hospitality or not, you'll find opportunities to connect and to support and help. And I love that about you. I love that about him. I love that about your company. And that's one of the reasons why, because I come across and I talk to so many chefs and operators and sommeliers and just folks who reach a point in their career and they're like, tell me like what's going on, like what am I missing, what are other people doing, what are the possibilities. And I love when I connect with someone and I'm like, you need to talk to Talia.
I love that
And
too. I love that too. Listen, there's nothing more, you know, there's the work that we do is so gratifying every day, right? Like I would never be able to do it if I didn't find it that. And I think people who didn't think they could work together and helping them figure out how to work together to the benefit of both is like that's the secret sauce, and that's something that Keith in many ways invented. Like some of the deals and the relationships that we're talking about, the ways for restaurants to work with, I call it the landowners, right? Because it's everybody. It's who owns the dirt, who needs to feed the constituents, and you have it coming up with these creative ways for people to work together where everybody's risk is mitigated. I mean, the old days are, it's a whole new thing, and traditional lease structures and opening up a restaurant in your hometown because you love cooking dinner on Sunday night is too risky. It was risky then, and it's too risky now. But it doesn't mean that the talent can't find a home. And that's what I love so much about FOC is I really think, we're able to make those connections and help give everybody those legs up that they need.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's take it back to you because this podcast is about you. Um, and that was my fault. I went down the Keith rabbit hole. But what a couple of things, and then we're going to go into quick fire here because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So, what's one thing that you would go back and say yes to? Is there an opportunity that got away, or I mean, you seem pretty in
Yes.
control with your your decisions.
I moved to New York in 2006 and I took a job at Blue Water Grill and I loved it. And I'm so happy that I worked at Blue Water Grill, but I almost took a job at Hillstone. And I always feel like it's the one that got away because I love that restaurant so much. And everyone I know that has gone through those doors has learned just so incredibly much. And I wish I could have worked at Hillstone for a couple of years.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah, they
one.
are known for having a great training program.
Yeah.
And what's next for you
What's next? I mean, well, our
at
company's growing,
FOC?
as you
In
know.
case
Yes,
you're
of course.
listening, Keith.
I'll never leave. Yeah, no, I'm here. It's not, this job and this company is truly the culmination. We get a couple of resumes every week, and most of them are young people who haven't fully gone through the trenches, and then every once in a while, it's someone who has been around the bend and back again and gets it and understands kind of like what you were talking about in the beginning of this. And I take every call, but I always take those calls because this is really the culmination. What's next? We're expanding. We acquired a catering logistics company. We're working on a few other kind of more larger projects with our new partner. We announced our new partner Ron Parker back in
Ron,
November, and we love Ron, and he's really going to help us grow the business, and I think in a very meaningful way.
dream team over there.
Yeah,
Exciting.
sometimes it feels kind of crazy. Lots of pinch me moments.
I love it. I'm overdue to come have a toast
I
at your
know
office.
you are any day, anytime.
um, how do you avoid burnout?
Avoid burnout. I thought about this question. I don't know. I mean, I think that you don't. I have a I have a characteristic that I think is good and bad, which is that I can't do anything that I don't like. Like if I don't want to do something, almost like physically can't bring myself to do it, and it's really not served me in the past. There have been plenty of times where I'm like, God, just stop being such a baby and do it, you know. But because I have been able to, for the most part, only do things that I like. I don't know. I just really enjoy it. I get tired. Like I get
Oh,
like
you are
physically
human.
tired.
Okay.
That sounded terrible. You're right. Oh gosh. I should have
No,
practiced that answer better.
no, it's
Um,
great. I mean, that's literally going to be like the snippet that we like push and highlight from this podcast. I love it.
I don't know. I think it's really, look, surround yourself with curious people. Surround yourself with people that are awake at the wheel, and then you won't get burned out, because I think burnout comes from when you're forced to do things that you weren't that you thought you delegated, or that weren't supposed to be your job anymore. And when you're around people who are constantly asking questions and curious and coming to the plate and are as passionate as you are about the work, that doesn't happen as often. So I don't know. I mean, I've left jobs, like I finished jobs. Like I left Levain and I wasn't burnt out. I just didn't think I wasn't learning at the pace that I wanted to be learning. It was actually the same problem. Like the business was so beautiful and so profitable, and it was almost like, okay, well, where's the next challenge? You know, it's like, this is working. So I don't know if that's the same as burnout. Sorry, it's not a
No,
very
it's
good
great.
answer.
No, look, it's for everyone is different. And I think that's something that, I might even need to like rework that question, right? Because it has to do
No,
with,
don't.
it has to do with the combination of like what inspires you, how do you keep motivated, and people are all wired differently. And some people
Mhm.
need more external, factors to like keep or prevent things, prevent
Yeah,
burnout but some, don't. And they have different things that fuel them differently. Right. And at the end of the day, it's like whatever the balance that works for you. I think that the journey is finding the balance that works for you.
yes,
Um,
very true.
and if that means this, that, and the other, and I think where you find that balance is when you are doing things that you want to do and that you
Yeah,
enjoy, and surrounding yourself with people that are contributing to the to that mission and goal and positivity. So
I
I love it.
completely
I mean, I'm finding so many insights as to why we became fast friends here, but
agree.
anyway. All right, now we're ready for quick fire questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, what advice would you tell your younger self?
The advice that I would tell my younger self is also the advice that I would tell my older self, which is slow down. And I actually mean just talk slower. Like just talk
You're like, no,
slower.
literally slow
Literally.
down.
I have found, and I will demonstrate, that if I slow the pace of my words, then I'm able to think more clearly, be more pointed and purposeful in how I communicate, and also how I organize my thoughts. And I am more successful. And I truly believe if I could figure out how to always talk slowly, I would catapult, I would be doing anything I wanted to
I love it. I'm going to take that advice.
do.
I've been told that too.
Yeah, I think you talk a little, you use a little bit of that.
I don't know if I'm trying to catch up with my brain or my brain's trying to catch up with me, but whatever.
Well, but this is exactly the point. But you just hit the nail on the head, because that's, if you slow down, if you force yourself to slow your words, and even just, and there's so many different ways to do it too, right? Like, I just moved to a new office, and I'm like adjacent to someone else's, so I'm cognizant of the volume of my voice. Even just having to lower the volume of your voice, you kind of, these physical inhibitors or disruptors to the, just for people like us whose brains move so quickly, it's like, it's magic. I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
I love
Works
that. I
really
think
well.
that's actually like a proven presentation tactic as well.
I
So
believe it.
anyway, I'm interrupting your quick fire question. Sorry. What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
Yeah, that's a tough one. My advice for someone struggling in the industry is to define the struggle, because the industry's hard. It is a struggle. There's so many things that are just a slog. And if the things that you're struggling with are like the fact that it's passion led, everyone's changing their mind, or that the unpredictability, you walk in and it's different than it was yesterday and you just wanted to be able to do the same thing. If the level of risk is too stressful, like those are, frankly, like those are not changing. So that tells you something. But if the struggle is like it's the wrong role, you hate your boss, the company has like terrible HR practices, like those are movable feasts, right? Like those. So in my mind, it's like figure out what it is that's bothering you. And I have a kind of a question. Is just I just thought of this. Whenever I had somebody who was struggling that was working for me, I would call them into some private space, whatever it was, and I would say, "Do you want me to help you to stay, or do you want me to help you to go?" And that often helps them crystallize like what. And sometimes go means leave the industry, right? And sometimes stay means stay, but in a new role. And we could talk about all those things. But if you have that framework, I find to help them figure out what it is that's bothering them, it's always going to be hard. You just have to, what do they say? Choose your hard.
I love it. I love it. And lastly, what's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
My best advice for leaders is to have fun every day. We don't work in a bank. As I said, evidenced by the last question, like this work is too hard not to make room for fun. You have to laugh. And you, as a leader too, like you have to remind everybody that we're doing something we chose to do, which is bring other people happy. And, I told you I worked at Blue Water Grill and it was owned by Be Our Guest. And we had these 30 days of service points. And one of them was a smile is part of your uniform, which is terrible, but fair. Right? Like, I think as a leader, I would say, like, find ways to have fun, to make sure everyone on your team is having fun and remembers what we're all here for every single day. Otherwise, go, be an actuary. Nothing against actuaries, but you understand what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, on that note,
they're going to come for me.
I mean, we'll edit it out. Thank you so much, Talia. So many great snippets of advice here. I definitely had a blast chatting with you, and I already jotted some notes on for some follow-on conversations on or offline. Thank you for spending the time and sharing advice and sharing a little bit about your journey with us.
My pleasure. For you, Alice, anything.
Oh, thank you. I'll remember that.
Bye.
Remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryaagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryaagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Until next time, keep rising!